From the C-suite to the street, welcome to another edition of Street Talk Live, featuring industry leaders and special guests, up-to-the-minute news and trending new developments, your questions answered live, and much, much more. And now, live from EPSG's corporate headquarters in Melville, New York, it's time for today's episode of Street Talk Live.
I think we're ready to go. So welcome everybody to today's Street Talk. We've been doing a lot of work this last week and a half, trying to think of exactly, how we want to present some different things to you guys and really change things up. We do a lot of planning at EPSG. We really had the next several months planned out in terms of marketing, in terms of, our message we want to get across, in terms of, optics, which unfortunately got ran into, unfortunately. And now we've had to kind of reset a little bit. We understand the environment we're in now, and, at EPSG, we're committed to our partners, to our merchants, and giving you guys whatever we can during kind of uncertain times like this. So, that's what this first portion of this presentation is about. We're going to announce some cool stuff, as well as, Kevin and Brett are going to, start us off with some great tips, that we know we're getting tons of questions about, and we know is going to help you guys in the field in our current environment. So as I was stating before, some of the changes that, we're going to make pretty much immediately starting next week in terms of Street Talk and the frequency of that is, we're going to start a new Street Talk series. Okay. Instead of, every other week and only get in front of you guys, twice a month, we thought it was important to really ramp that up. We know that there's some people, depending on what area in the country you're in, you're probably not free to go out and about and knock on doors and prospect new agents. So, you might have a little bit of time on your hands. So we thought it would be a great opportunity to put together some really excellent trainings and topics that are not only relevant to the situation we're in now, but gives an opportunity for some people out there that, maybe are veterans in the industry that, always looking for new tips and new ideas and new ways to attack business, but also, being able to sharpen your saw a little bit, right? And take an opportunity like this where we might have some idle hands and use that as a constructive time to hone your craft, so to speak. So, that's some of the objectives for this. We want you guys to be primed and ready, for when this slowdown ramps back up, that you guys are sharper than ever, because it's going to be a lot of opportunity out there. The herd's going to get thinned a little bit in terms of these merchants that aren't worth your time, right? So, we always got to look at the positive as salespeople. That's what we do best. Sometimes we lie to ourselves, but that's what keeps us going. That's what keeps us alive. And it's certainly what keeps me going, So really, some of the stuff that's going to cover, guys, is, learning how to use, conference, software like we're on right now. To potentially sell in a remote environment. Obviously, Smart App was a great addition, not only for day to day, but in our current environments, it's even better. We're about a few weeks away from launching version 2.0 of the Smart App. That's going to allow you to perform maintenance on your existing merchants as well. That's going to be extremely helpful in our current environment, no doubt about that. Some of the other stuff is just understanding EPSG statements. Right. As we've evolved as a company and we've added more back ends, we've added more statements. Some of the vets on the call can relate to back in the day when we only had one statement. Now we have 2, 3, 4 different types of statements. So we're going to put together a great topic on that and going through each one of these statements to make sure you guys are primed and ready for future. And when we add more banks, how other statements are going to look. We think it's important right now. A great tip we can give you is to reach out to every single one of your merchants and come up with a good script on how you're going to deal with those merchants, right? You're going to find problems. You're going to, generate some leads. You're going to get a good sense of, how, merchants are being treated in our current environment, by either competitors. I would call every one of your leads. It's a great time to really dig in and kind of get in things like that. And a lot more topics than this. We've already got, the agenda already written out all the way through April. And depending on what type of environment we're in towards the end of April, it might even be longer, but we're poised and ready to do that. So I'm really excited about that, and being able to be in front of you guys. We're going to do it through this Zoom conference and through these meetings like this. I suggest learning cool backgrounds like I have right now. I'm in space. Sometimes I feel it's the only place I feel safe in the world right now is in space, right? I think that it's pretty fun to do that, and it's great to get in front and see people. I'm used to seeing Brett every single day. It was nice getting a week off, but now I'm liking seeing him a little bit now on the camera as well. So we do that. So with that,
I'm very handsome on the camera, Jeff.
So with that being said, we want to bring you kind of the first topic. This is something Kevin's really been passionate about. He's really been digging in with his guys in Texas. Some of the guys on the call, you're probably going to hear some redundant stuff because Kevin's been kind of a good leader on those calls for you already. But obviously, we thought it would be great to bring some great tips we can provide for you. In selling in this remote environment, that Kevin's gotten really good at. Before Kevin starts, I want to encourage anybody who has any questions on what he's covering or whatever. Please just feel free to type that question in the question or the chat log there. And as Kevin and Brett's going to have a little presentation after this as well, I'll be kind of monitoring those questions on mine. So with that being said, Kevin, please take the floor.
Thanks, Jeff. So kind of like you said, a big part of this, a lot of you may have already heard it before, have already thought about it, but really kind of bringing it to the forefront of how you can utilize some of these new technologies. And I think whenever you look at all of the options out there, you've got, obviously we're using Zoom right now. We've embraced it as an organization for communications. And actually, oddly enough, Jeff saw him every day. I never saw Brett. So this has been a much different change for me in the opposite direction. So embracing this technology is going to be really important. I think, for one, you've got a lot of options. Zoom being one of them. I've heard FaceTime being used if you have an iPhone. Obviously, that doesn't work if you're using an Android. Facebook Messenger and things like that. Learn them all. I would assume would be a good tip because some of your merchants may not want to get on Zoom. Maybe they're used to FaceTime already. Maybe they use Facebook Messenger and the video technologies there already. So be ready to use any one of them because a lot of it's going to be at the mercy of the merchant, whether or not they're willing to do it in the first place. So learn all of them. And I think start with this Zoom technology. As Jeff said, there's a lot of ways that you can mask the background, keep the dogs and the kids screaming out, things like that out of your meetings. It keeps it personal and it allows the merchant to actually see you face to face, which is what we do as salespeople in this organization. It's a trust factor that's built. And as we know, it's not that easy to get in front of them a lot of times. And so keep the relationship personal using video. The next thing would be how can I utilize the technology to help me sell and close more? And a big part of that is utilizing it to present statements. Back in the day, we'd always have the paper statements. We'd print them out. We'd go and we sit down with the merchant and we'd say, here's what we could do for you, right? Our comparisons, proposals, things like that. And there was always that weird fear that we had of leaving that proposal behind because we know a good majority of the time that merchant's probably going to turn around, fax it off to their current company, and boom, it's gone. They match the rates. So those of you that have been on the streets have run into that 100 times, I'm sure. So this is a weird opportunity to where you're not going to send that to them. You could do a screen share through Zoom, just like Jeff is doing right now, walk through the proposal. Then you can also use that same time to show off products, do text sheets, which we have loaded on our back office on the new partner portal, look up informational videos, do demos, all kinds of stuff like that. Do USA ePay demos, PayTrace demos. We've been using that a lot lately as a company, and it's made it a lot more interactive for them to be actually seeing you and seeing the products and things like that in action. So use that for statement presentations. As just a side note, we are 100% up and running with our proposals team. So nothing changes on that. Turnaround is going to be the same, if not faster. So keep sending those statements in if you can do that. Next thing is, you could do, like I said, screen shares with product demos, fact sheets, things like that, utilizing our back office, YouTube videos, things like that that we'll be working through. Smart app. Jeff mentioned the smart app and smart app 2.0 rolling out. Current smart app, we've had tons of these being utilized on the remote version of it. You can do face-to-face, or you can do a remote app. And we have people that are writing deals from Louisiana into Texas. We have people from Texas doing Ohio deals. And it's happening all the time now. It's really interesting how that's opened up this opportunity where you never have to leave the comfort of your home. Everything can be digitally signed. You can actually utilize one of these meeting technologies to go through the app, complete the app with the merchant, probably want to go and preload pricing and things like that beforehand, and then go through all the information while they're on the phone, click on the links, walk them through it, signatures are complete, and you submitted the app all as if you were sitting across from them in person. Probably even a lot quicker at that point. 2.0 is going to go a lot into your existing portfolio that you have. If you think about the merchants that are suffering through this time, they might have a lot of questions. They're going to have problems. You're still going to have to service that portfolio even more so now to make sure that that remains intact after this is all said and done. So utilize this to keep your customers around. Stay in touch with them. Let them see you that you're there. And if you need to do any maintenance, submit more forms for all these wireless terminals. I know Brett's going to talk a lot about the technology piece as far as what merchants are needing. You can utilize that 2.0 Smart App to never actually have to send documents back and forth, get everything completed through that maintenance side of it as well. So it'll be easier to maintain your current relationships. And like I mentioned before, easily work outside of your current territory that you're used to working in right now. So maybe you usually only drive around the Austin market and surrounding markets and things like that. But now your reach grows much stronger because you don't have to actually be in the same town. So working through referrals and things like that. A big part of this that I think we as an organization have spoken about a lot between Jeff, Brett, myself, Greg Sneed, is our sensitivity to understanding that this isn't a perfect time for everybody to be working out there right now. And we know that we certainly don't want the pressure to be on by any means. All we want to do is give you some tools that if you do choose and you need to work and you need to still support the family and things like that, then we can make it easier on you and help you still grow that portfolio. So Jeff, that covers everything from my side, and I guess we can turn it back over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate that information, definitely. And I hadn't got any questions about it, so I guess you were pretty thorough. So I know.
Hey, Jeff, one thing I do want to add, I'm sorry to cut you off,
Sure.
is one of these trainings that we're going to do off the cuff is going to be an actual Zoom walkthrough and a full run through all the different features through Zoom, how you can utilize it, of the actual physical piece of software. So we'll get that scheduled out as well for next week too. So
absolutely, guys. I encourage you to learn how to do this stuff. It's really helpful, believe it or not. So, but yeah, no, great stuff, Kevin. So, Brett wanted to wrap it up today. I think this is a great topic because this is really happening every single day right now. Obviously, Brett has a huge personal book, not only, with, obviously it's all with EPSG, obviously, but so he has got a lot of merchants that he's very close with. And we're getting all the same calls you guys are too, and I think he's got some great information to kind of arm you guys for these merchants that might be outside of their normal comfort zone. So please, Brett, floor is yours.
Yeah, Jeff, thank you. Thanks, Kev. Before I go into that, first I want to send our love to the whole entire EPSG family, both employees and our sales partners and their families. And, to everyone, please stay safe. Weird times, new times. Let's all stay safe, watch what we're doing.
Please.
And this is a point in time. This will change. For a bunch of us who are older, especially guys like Stevie P, who's really old. But, we've been through, everything from the crashes to September 11th to things like this. Point in time, this will pass. A little bit different, but, if we all stay safe, play it smart, this will be over soon, pretty soon, hopefully, at the end of the day. So that's the first thing. On a second point, I just want to reiterate, any emails pertaining to risk, please send them to risk, R-I-S-K, at GoEPSG. You don't need to CC partner support, sales team, myself, Jeff Burke, Kevin Canada, Rich Ross. I want to send a special thanks out to Rich. Rich has been going from about 5:30 in the morning till probably about 10:30 at night, nonstop, managing every aspect of the risk with his team. But please, things have been done to the portfolio from a risk standpoint we all spoke about in the past, related to holds applied to certain merchant categories, either 10% or full holds, or delay in funding, anything, partial reserves, just send an email to risk@goepsc, and pretty much all throughout the day and the night, based on our investigation, the vast majority of them, when I say vast, over 90% of them are being removed and funds are being released. And we have conversations with merchants all day and they totally understand. But please just send an email to risk@goepsc. No need to CC anybody. And just put the merchant number and a little explanation, and we'll get on it immediately. Going from there, to Jeff's point and to Kevin's point, different times, right? Believe it or not, and again, I want to send a big shout out to cheers to the sales partners that from a distance, utilizing Smart App, or from certain areas that are not affected by this, are still writing deals. It's mind blowing to me at the end of every day when, I get a call from Jeff and Kevin, Greg Sneed, and they talk about, look what we did today. It's just mind blowing for me how we are still doing business in this environment. And really, when you look at it, it's the vast majority is what Kevin Cannon is talking about, is utilizing, call it Zoom or some type of Facebook Live and the Smart App, doing business from a distance. Merchants still have needs. I'm going to go into some of those needs right now. So really cheers to the people doing that, and mind blown, really thinking outside the box. So to Jeff's point, I probably spend 50% of my day, all day, speaking to merchants. I've, in the EPSG portfolio, there's probably somewhere in the area of, 1,000 to 1,500 merchants that I've signed up. And these run the gamut from liquor stores to restaurants, retail, some online. And these merchants all have the same needs and concerns of everybody today. And really, I sit there and I call them because I think right now, putting aside, acquiring new business, I think it's more important right now to spend time speaking to your merchant book, your portfolio, to tell those people, those merchants, that we're there for them, you're there for them, and what can you help them with? What advice do they need? And that's going to lead into what I'd like to talk about. So the vast majority of them really talk about chargebacks. You find restaurants, you find liquor stores going to an environment of not chipping the card, or a lot more deliveries, or taking a curbside where they don't have a terminal tied into the POS. And the vast majority of it leads to, Brett, what is my protection? As a matter of fact, yesterday, it's not only restaurants. I was on the phone with a car dealer yesterday with 26 locations. And it pleased that they were asking the same question. They have over 50 people spread across those locations who are, dropping the car off at people's house, and how do they protect themselves? I know that one of our plans, through the sales team, Jeff, and what we spoke about was really educating on chargeback management in 2020. But right now, based on this environment, my opinion, and it's strictly my opinion, it's when you speak to a merchant, we went out there and we said we ordered $50,000 or $60,000 worth of Z9 wireless terminals, and so we are getting a big call for them. But really, when you look at it, the more conversations I had with merchants, it's, right now, do you really want to change how you do business? Because if you speak to merchants today, the way a restaurant does a delivery, at least I know from New York and from other areas, cities, it's probably the same. A person calls in an order prior to the coronavirus, and still today, they take the credit card, the order over the phone, they run that order through the terminal, and what they do at that point is they deliver the product to the cardholder, and they don't get a chip. They get a signature on a receipt, which we all know does not protect them, no matter what. And they get a signature on a receipt, which they don't even need at the end of the day. So, and again, if we look at chargebacks across the board in our portfolio, we run way, way under 1%. So you're talking the vast majority of the whole entire portfolio has chargebacks way under 0.5%. So they're not getting chargebacks. My advice to merchants is very simple. In today's day and age, for the most part, don't change how you do business. We monitor chargebacks, retrievals, volume by MCC code, by region, every day. Every morning we have a conference call looking at it. I can tell you right now, there is not an uptick in chargebacks. There is not an uptick in retrievals. So if someone wants to take, they're going to be taking more orders over the phone. End of story. It's all going to be over the phone. I would say what you do is you take that order, continue how you do business today, and run the card. Don't forget, it's sort of like this catch-22. If you say, I'm not going to run the card when the order comes in, and you get to the merchant's location, the reason they run the card up front to see if the card's good and they don't get declines. So now if they made the food and they chip the card at the location and it gets declined, what are they going to do at that point? And based on where that merchant is, you know, a lot of the conversations I had were with certain restaurants that deliver to certain neighborhoods that have fraud and counterfeiting. And they're afraid for their drivers. If they brought a mobile unit out there and the card got declined, a lot of times I hear stories of these drivers getting pretty much bullied into giving the food and the mobile unit for that matter. So my advice to people right now is don't change how you do business. A lot of these restaurants have POS systems. They don't talk back to POS systems. You know, some of the things I tell them is you can take one mobile unit and choose an average ticket. If the average ticket's above a certain threshold, then absolutely chip that card. You know, if you're talking, what you do is you are seeing higher average tickets based on people ordering more food to refrigerate or freeze. And I would say if the average ticket is higher, okay, I understand chipping it. But at the same point, you know, you don't want to touch anything. You don't want to take the card. It's not a bad idea just to do business as usual. We are monitoring chargebacks. You, as a merchant, you will see if you start getting chargebacks, then maybe you have to deviate at that point. And at that point, you have to go to a mobile unit. But my advice right now was don't change how you do business. You can take a mobile unit based on average tickets ticking up. Choose that high dollar amount. But that seemed to be what most merchants agree to. When you walk through.
Hey, Brett, would you mind if I kind of ask you a question or two about that?
Yes, sir.
So, you know, this is great information. And I think one of the things that's blaringly obvious and what Brett's touching on is regardless if they bring in a wireless type of solution, they're going to be manually entering in more cards, right? And you're really dealing with the merchant that's lived their entire life or business life, at least at this location, in a card present environment. Now all of a sudden they're going to a card not present environment. And you hear a lot of buzzwords about like AVS, address verification, CVV codes, you know, kind of things like that, fraud modules, like kind of stuff we have on the slide. But at least for me, you know, I've learned a lot, you know, being in the office, but there's a lot of, you know, ambiguity around, you know, what protects them, you know, so, you know, I think it would be great if you I learned a lot from you in this topic and just to arm these guys on when these merchants call and say, if I manually enter in these transactions, Todd or Dennis or Stevie P, you know, like, how am I protected? What is this AVS? What is CVV? Could you kind of explain a little bit of that?
Sure, absolutely. Thanks, Chef. That makes sense. So let's talk about the two different types of chargebacks, right? There is counterfeiting and fraud and services were not rendered. So when we talk about restaurants, the vast majority of their fraud is going to be counterfeiting and fraud. It's like 98% comes from it was a counterfeit card, it was charged back that it wasn't them or it's fraudulent. And you'll call 3% of those cards are services were not rendered. When you go to a restaurant environment, you're talking more of the tip was different, split charge, things like that. So when every one of these restaurants is set up for retail, right? Their MCC code is retail. So the bottom line is if a counterfeiting or counterfeiting and fraud chargeback comes in, ABS, CVV, fraud, none of that counts. The merchant automatically loses at that point. When you talk about full mail order prompts, what protects them? That is really for non-restaurant business. That's really geared towards things like, I was talking about the car deal. So car dealers are the total opposite. they get 98 to 99% of their chargebacks for not as described, right? It's not what something happened. It didn't work correctly. It wasn't what they wanted fixed. At that point, a chip transaction, it's what the chargeback people call POS entry mode, doesn't matter because they're not disputing it for counterfeiting and fraud. So it doesn't matter that it was chipped. What matters at that point is, A, do you have a contract? What does it say in the contract? Did the merchant sign the contract? Et cetera, et cetera. When you get involved in ABS, CVV, that goes back to, is the merchant set up as an MCC code for mail order or card not present?
But also, it also means that if the CVV code that's entered at the point of sale or the zip code that's entered in at the point of sale, if it's not correct, the transaction will be declined. Okay. So let's think about a fraudulent
100%.
transaction for a second, right? The merchants, the fraudulent card holder, was able to retrieve that credit card data in some way, shape, or form. Maybe it was the dark web, maybe somebody wrote it down, whatever the situation is, right? Well, the majority of the time, that thief doesn't know the cardholder's zip code, doesn't know the cardholder's CVV. All they have is the account number, right? So what the ABS and CV, Brett is absolutely right. It means nothing in terms of a chargeback argument, but what it does do is it declines the fraudulent cards. So it never becomes a chargeback. So it's still a good lesson to learn for the agent, or excuse me, to teach the merchant, rather.
Right. So let's apply that to real. It's a good point. Let's apply it to real world, right? So, what I advise in this environment. So if you have, and who knows how long it's going to go on, right? But definitely the way business is done is going to change in the future to a point. So example being, if you have merchants that are absolutely talking about fraud and protecting themselves, my suggestion is to go to a separate merchant account, utilizing authorized.net or something like that, which have amazing suites of security products built into them. The ability with a click to turn on full security prompts, which is ABS, CVV code, and other things. Go to a separate merchant account for mail, card not present, let's call it. In a card not present environment, based on passing ABS, CVV, and a few other things, we can reverse back that dispute at that point. Now, we can reverse it back the first time, and based on the average ticket, what you will find, when it's all said and done, a merchant has no protection. When it's all said and done, in the end, no protection related to a card not present chargeback. If it's disputed or reversed back the second time, the merchant automatically loses. But based on these types of average tickets, and the reason, if it's an MCC code is card not present, and they run ABS, CVV, full mail order prompts, and pass it, we can reverse it back to the merchant and protect them. So, you may, if someone's pushing it, you may want to go to a situation where getting them a separate account set up as telephone mail order or internet for that matter. From there, we'll talk more about this. If you guys want to send in questions, we'll talk more about this in the upcoming calls. But it all leads back to having a conversation with your merchants. In this environment or not, I've always been a big proponent of servicing your portfolio. 50% of it is getting new business. The other 50% is controlling your attrition and speaking to your merchants. Right now, I would say about 98% of it is speaking to your merchants, letting them know you're here. Answer their questions. If you can't answer it, myself, Jeff, Kevin, Greg Sneed, anyone is available, Todd Honahan, to do a call with the merchant and explain it. We're pretty good at this stuff, but it's a very good time to talk to them about, what you can do to help them. Is that understanding chargeback management. We are monitoring it. We are looking at it. We don't see tick ups. I can tell you that, based on data, if you go back 3 days, we were only off by like 12 or 12 to 14.5% in overall volume. Now, I want to be clear that is on the whole entire portfolio. It differs from region, sales partner, MCC code, and it differs as you drive into it more. But then over the last 2 days, prior to this 2 days, the volume really started going down. But over the last day, we've seen an uptick in volume and we look at it all day. So there are a little bit of upticks right now, not above the old, what it was, but you do see restaurants starting to get comfortable, people getting comfortable with ordering from restaurants and things like that. Speak to your merchants, tell them you're there. There is no magic bullet. They have to be aware. They have to be smarter. The biggest thing behind risk and security to merchants is don't get big eyes. Someone calls in for a $5,000 order and you do see it in this environment, don't get big eyes. Be smart about it. Who is that person? Are they coming there? If they come there, you have to chip the card. Utilizing social media, Google Maps, you can see what the address they ordered from. Tell the merchants to be smarter in this environment too. I'll turn it back to you, Joe.
Cool. Hey, great stuff there, Brett. Definitely. So, we wanted to have this call, like we said in the beginning, to kind of introduce. We're going to have more and more content. At the end of this call, or probably by this afternoon, we're going to have a new section up in the partner portal that kind of outlines the entire agenda through April. It's twice a week, Tuesday, Thursdays. Please feel free to look at that agenda and attend at your leisure. We're going to continue to keep that in addition to some other messages out there in front of you. Also on that same page, we're still kind of designing it, so I don't know exactly how it's going to look, but there'll be kind of like a suggestion box in there. We thought that'd be a good time of the, in everybody's day where you might have some topics that, maybe aren't on that agenda, that have always kind of interest you or aggravated you. And you kind of want a little bit more background on that to kind of sharpen your saw, so to speak. We want to make ourselves available for that. So there'll be some opportunities to put in that information and get some time. We'll make sure that we put you in front of the specialist, whether that be Brett or myself or Kevin or Greg Sneed or whatever, Rich in terms of statements and proposals and different items. So, we want to be a resource for you to do that. So with that being said, that's going to wrap up today. So we really appreciate it. I guess I didn't get any questions. For those, if you had any, I'll still open the floor up for some more if you'd like. It's pretty simple. If you just click on that little more button on the side of your panel, there's a little thing that says chat. You can go to that chat. You can simply just type in a question or two inside that chat. That'll come directly to me, and I'll be more than happy to get those questions answered. But if you don't, have a great rest of the day, and we hope everybody stays safe, and make sure you wash your hands. Okay.
See you, everybody. Thanks, guys.
Stay safe, all.
For more information on any of the topics covered in this episode of Street Talk Live, please contact the EPSG sales team at 1-866-373-2249 or via email at salesteam@goepsg.com. We look forward to hearing from you. To enjoy this and previous episodes of Street Talk Live, please visit us on the web at www.goepsg.com. Street Talk Live is an EPSG production.